This episode is sponsored by Smart Travel, a new podcast from NerdWallet. You know that one friend who always finds the best travel deals, picks the right cards, and somehow ends up in first class for the price of coach? Smart Travel is like that friend, but in podcast form. They cover all things finance, like which deals are actual deals and not just clickbait, when that convenient travel bundle might actually be a hidden tax in disguise, the smartest way to book flights without playing the guess the cheapest day game, how to avoid paying for upgrades you won't use. The nerds at NerdWallet know this stuff better than me, and that's why I feel great about recommending the Smart Travel podcast. After all, we nerds have to stick together. Travel smarter and spend less with the help from NerdWallet. Follow Smart Travel wherever you get your podcasts. I've been doing a little spring reset with my closet lately, focusing more on quality over quantity. Just building a wardrobe of pieces that are well made, versatile, and easy to reach for every day. That's why I keep coming back to Quince. The fabrics feel elevated, the fits are thoughtful, and the pricing actually makes sense. Quince makes beautiful everyday pieces using premium materials like 100% European linen, organic cotton, and super soft denim, with styles starting around $50. The spring pieces are lightweight, breathable, and effortless, the kind of things you can throw on and instantly look put together. With unseasonably warm weather in California this week, I'm recording this in shorts and my white European linen casual short sleeve shirt. Refresh your spring wardrobe with Quince. Go to quince.com/traveler for free shipping and 365-day returns. Now available in Canada too. Go to quince.com/traveler for free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/traveler, and thanks to Quince for sponsoring this episode of Amateur Traveler. Amateur Traveler, episode 992. Today, Amateur Traveler talks about hand-painted tiles and a bone chapel, wineries and megaliths, dark skies, and Gerald the Fearless, as we talk about the Alentejo region of Portugal. This is Chris Christensen from Amateur Traveler. Let's talk about Portugal. I'd like to welcome to the show Julie Fox from juliedawnfox.com. She is a travel blogger as well as a travel advisor for Portugal. Julie, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Chris. It's a pleasure to be here.
And Julie looked at the episodes we did on Portugal and said, you're not talking at all about Alentejo, which I'd never heard of. So it's just a clear reason why we haven't talked about it on the show. Where were you talking about, Julie?
Okay, so the Alentejo is to the east and south of Lisbon, and it's actually the largest region in Portugal. It's about a third of its landmass, but it's a place that most people, if at most, they probably visit on a day trip to Évora or just drive through it on their way to the Algarve region,
The Algarve,
which is
sure.
more popular and well known. But that's a mistake. There's plenty to see and do in the Alentejo. So yeah, it's a great place if you're into slow travel and small towns and countryside and that kind of place.
Excellent.
Yeah.
I think you've anticipated my why should you go there question. So we'll skip on ahead to what itinerary are you going to recommend for us?
Okay, so although the Alentejo, because it's such a big region, it is actually quite varied, and you've got natural parks with like mountain ranges, you've got turquoise waters and pale sand in places just south of Lisbon. I'm going to focus for this itinerary on the more central part of the Alentejo, with the largest city, Évora, as a base for the first 4 nights. And then I'm going to move us to a tiny little village, which is medieval, and it's one of the dark sky reserves. And so It's amazing for stargazing because there's nothing else around, no light pollution. And so it's perfect for that. What you're getting in this general area is a combination of UNESCO towns, fortified villages, Roman sites, craft traditions, big skies, big lake, and prehistoric sites. So there's lots of variety and things of interest. So with Évora,
Mm-hmm.
the idea of this itinerary is to use a car. You can, in theory, take a train or a bus from Lisbon to Évora.
In theory, I like that.
No, in practice, you can take a train or a bus from Lisbon to Évora. It takes about an hour and a half. But once you get there, it's difficult to explore the surrounding area without a car. So I think it makes most sense to actually pick up a car in Lisbon, especially this itinerary that I'm proposing is actually a round trip and finishes back in Lisbon on the basis that you've got a car. If you really don't want to drive, you could use Évora as your base for the whole time and use tours and local private guides to take you to some of the surrounding places. But you'll have a lot more flexibility if you've got your own car. The actual driving times aren't that much. Kept this sort of places that are quite close to each other, so you're not wasting an awful lot of time in transit because it's more important to actually see the places of interest.
And is there anything we should stop and see between Lisbon and Évora since we've got our car now?
Yes. So on the first day, so when you've got your car, I suggest stopping at a small town or village called Arraiolus. And this is about an hour and a quarter from Lisbon. So you're almost in Évora, but not quite. And this place is famous for its tapestry rugs. They've been produced there since the 16th century, and they became quite popular among the aristocracy in the 18th century. So they were used not just to decorate the floors, but also to display wealth because they're hand woven, they're very beautiful, but the traditional patterns fell out of fashion in the 19th century. And it wasn't until the 20th century when some local women decided to revive the tradition and introduce some more modern patterns and designs that it's come back into fashion. And you'll see, if you go to a historical hotel or one of the estates in the Alentejo, for example, you'll undoubtedly see some of these rugs used on the floor or as wall hangings. So if you wander around the village, then there are various shops where you can see weavers in action. What I'd really recommend is to pop into the Interpretation Centre or museum. So in the Interpretation Centre, there's lots of examples. You can see the dyeing pits that date back to actually the Middle Ages. And you can see the design process. And we're talking about
dyeing of rugs here rather than people dyeing in...
Yeah.
Assuming that from the context, but one much more touristic than the other.
Yeah, and less grisly, although there's something a bit more grisly coming a bit later.
Okay.
So apart from the rugs, which is still part of the local economy, another thing to see while you're there is the circular castle up on the hill. Now, there's not much left of the actual castle, but you can still see the circular walls, which is quite a rare shape in Portugal. They're not usually circular, and so it's probably influenced by the French. And there's a really cute restaurant called O Alpendre, and that is a very traditional restaurant where you can get hearty, typical meals. And then if you want to, if you feel up to a little detour on the way to Évora, there's a convent just outside Arraiolus, and it's now actually the building, the main building, the convent building, has been turned into a pousada. So that's like a historical hotel.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you've heard of those.
I'm more familiar with the Spanish ones, but yes.
Yeah. So it's the same concept. So they've restored monasteries and palaces and convents, etc. So with this one, although the main building is, like I say, a private hotel, the church is open for anyone to go into, and it's beautiful. It's a wonderful example of Portuguese azulejos. So this is the kind of tile,
the black
panels,
and white
hand painted, blue and white.
Oh, sorry, blue and white.
Yeah.
Let me try that again because I'm looking at a blue picture here. Yeah,
right,
the blue
okay.
and white tiles.
Yeah, so this was like commissioned especially for the church. So it fits the shapes of the building and details the lives of the saints and charitable activities, etc. But it's really pretty. And it's also got a really lovely doorway as well. Yeah,
And
so that
I
there's that.
love those tile work. I noticed on your website that your headshot there is in front of some of the tile work, like this tile work here. But if people are not familiar with it, it is just a beautiful art form and very Portuguese.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so many different styles of tiles as well.
Hmm.
But these ones, the ones you find in the churches, tell some amazing stories and lots of fat cherubs as well. But yeah.
And they serve, in some cases, like here in the churches, you're serving the same purpose as stained glass, not just decorative, but you're telling some story because a lot of your people would have not been literate. And so this would be how you'd get your Bible stories across. And I see that both in that convent as well as the other church in the same town. The huge murals here depicting what would be the artist's interpretation of a biblical scene, except that, of course, everything looks like it was in the 16th century.
Yeah, absolutely. There are definitely stories. I don't remember exactly which saints are represented
Yeah, yeah.
in that church, but yes, there are saintly stories. And you're exactly right. They would have been used to help the illiterate people understand the stories behind the Bible. Once you've done it with Arraiolo, then you would drive to Évora itself. Now,
Hmm.
Évora is a UNESCO World Heritage City. The total population is about 55,000. So to me, it's more of a town than a city. It definitely
Hmm.
doesn't feel big city. It still feels quite lived in, although once you're inside the walled part, there's lots of cobbled streets, etc. So it's not actually great for driving inside. So a lot of
Hmm.
people, obviously, the more modern buildings are outside the walls, the city spread. But it began as a Roman town, and you'll see a
Hmm.
Roman temple inside the heart of the city. But then it passed through Visigoth and then Moorish hands. And it was reconquered by the Christians in the 12th century. There's a guy called Gerald the Fearless. I love the name. And he had quite brutal and underhand tactics, but they were effective, and he managed to regain control of the city. And then in the 15th, 16th centuries, it became a really important religious centre and royal centre. So the kings would stay there in the royal palace. And the Jesuits formed a major university, which is the second oldest in Portugal. So there's a huge mix of different periods of history, all in a tiny, compact centre. So that's why I chose it, because it's got lots of places of interest. What I suggest for the first afternoon is to start with the cathedral. So this, architectural wise, it's Romanesque Gothic style. It was started in the late 1300s, finished in 1350. When I went there was a mass going on in the main church. There weren't
Hmm.
any other visitors to the actual cathedral, so we were just wandering around on our own. And it's typical of that period. You've got beautiful stone rows, you've got arches, vaulted ceilings, etc. To get the best views, you need to climb a spiral staircase, which is actually almost hidden. But once you're up there, then you get a much better view of the rose window. You'll get to see a carving of Gerald the Fearless on his horse. And the view from the top is really quite something. So that's definitely somewhere that's worth a visit. That doesn't really feature much in the guidebooks. In fact, I
Oh,
think
interesting.
the first few times I went to Évora, it wasn't on my list of things to do or see.
Huh.
And so it was only in a kind of mop-up visit. I was like, oh, let's go into the cathedral. And for me, it's one of the highlights. Yeah.
And you were talking earlier about a grizzly. I noticed there is a statue in town of Gerald the Fearless holding one defeated Moor's head and with another one lying at his feet.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, he didn't pull any punches, and his very guerrilla tactics, his style of warfare, but it was what was needed at the time. After you've done with the cathedral, another place, if you want more tiles, and there are tiles in the cathedral too, but There's another church that has another set of beautiful azulejo panels like the one in Loios, in Arraiolos. So this is the Cadaval Ducal Palace. And this one you have to pay to go into. If you wanted a free one, then go to the one near the Pousada. If you're happy to pay, then you can go to the one in Évora, the Cadaval Ducal Palace. Okay. That also has some art exhibitions inside as well, and a small museum. But I'd say that's optional, depending on whether you saw the other one or not. And another optional, depends if you've still got time, energy or whatever, but I mentioned the university. It's not quite as impressive as the University of Coimbra, in my opinion.
Sure.
But because that really is a special building.
Really is impressive, yeah.
Yeah. But it is one of Portugal's longest running universities. And if you're not going to Coimbra, then it's worth a visit. The lecture rooms ooze history. They've all got these blue and white azulejo panels again. The grand hall has multicoloured azulejo panels and also an Arraiolos rug on the far wall. So, yeah, it's a nice to do if you've got the time and the energy.
About the university, when you're comparing it to Coimbra, sure. But if you compared it to where I went to school, it's lovely. It's quite gorgeous.
Yeah, exactly. Like just sitting, when you go into one of the lecture halls, it's like being in a church. You've got the columns, you've got the vaulted ceilings, you've got the tile panels. It's oozing history. So,
exactly.
Yeah. And you feel like you're in a seat of learning that's been there for, centuries, because it has. Another thing that has been in Évora for centuries is the aqueduct, the Água da Prata aqueduct. And now, the one thing that you need to know about the Alentejo is that it's quite a dry area. And the town or the city of Évora didn't have a proper supply of drinking water. In fact, the nearest river or whatever was quite a few kilometres away. So this was built in the mid-16th century to provide clean drinking water to the population. And so it actually spans 18 kilometres and has various, obviously, fountains along the way. And it ends in Praça de Geraldo, where that statue of Gerald the Fearless is.
Okay.
Yeah. But what is really unique, I think, I don't know. I've only ever seen it in Évora, so it may be that it happens in other places, but this aqueduct, there's a part of the city where they've actually built houses into the arches. Obviously, they're quite narrow and long, but it's the last thing you'd expect to see is just an actual house inside the archway of an aqueduct.
Huh. I have not seen that before either.
No, and I don't know if it's currently possible. I think at least one of them was turned into like an Airbnb or something, so you could even stay in one if you wanted. Yeah, so it's nice. You can actually walk along the aqueduct in the walled town, but also there is a hiking trail that goes along further out along the aqueduct into the countryside. Some of it goes along the road, so that's a bit less fun, but then it does get into proper open countryside. So it's nice if you want to explore a little bit more on foot. Okay. Another thing that the Alentejo region is renowned for is its wines. So the most famous wine region in Portugal is the Douro. So Douro wines, not just port, but the actual reds and whites, are outstanding quality. And the Alentejo region is on a par with the Douro for its wines. It doesn't produce the fortified stuff like port, but the reds are full-bodied because the climate there, it's hot, it's dry. So you get some really nice, strong reds. And there are lots of different wineries all around the region. So what you can do, there's an actual tasting room and shop in the centre of Évora called Rota dos Vinhos do Alentejo, which means the Alentejo wine routes. And you can actually taste wines by the glass there. Then you can ask questions about the wineries. And I'm not sure if they will actually make bookings for you, but they can certainly guide you. If you're looking for a particular type of winery or a particular kind of wine, they can actually guide you towards which one would be most suitable for you. So if you haven't already booked winery visits in advance, then it's definitely worth popping in there and talking to the people, trying the wines, and seeing if that influences where you want to go on other days in your trip.
Okay.
Okay. That is pretty much day one. I'm going to talk about restaurants later. So on the second day, I would say start early and go to the Bone Chapel. Okay, now this is the grisly bit. Yeah, it's the grisly bit that I was talking about.
Yeah, I figured right away when I saw that was the grisly bit you were talking about.
Yeah, so this is inside the San Francisco Church, St. Francis Church. So 500 years ago, there were too many bodies, the cemetery was overflowing. So the Franciscan monks gathered up the skeletons of over 5,000 people from the town graves and used them to build a really quite beautiful chapel. And so the purpose was not just to create more space, but also to encourage people to contemplate the transitory nature of human life. But they've been really cleverly displayed and put together, and it's eerily beautiful in a creepy way.
I've been to a couple of these, and don't get it why someone gets up in the morning and decides, let's decorate a chapel with bones. But
no, but then if you need to do something with them, and I suppose it does show that it doesn't matter how rich or important you are, there's no escaping death.
No escaping.
It happens to all of us. Yeah, so after you've done your sort of contemplation, I would go upstairs in the church because they have a collection of presepios, which is nativity scenes. Now, this is a deeply rooted Christmas tradition in Portugal. So became popular in the 17th and 18th centuries, and in private homes, and the wealthy households would have very elaborate scenes with different figures, some showing obviously the Christian situation, others showing people in daily lives, vignettes, whatever. And to me, obviously, because of the taste and fashion, some of them look quite grotesque, but they're still really interesting.
There's none made with bones, I assume. But...
No, not made with bones. They're made with all sorts of different materials, clay and wood, glass, ceramics, the sorts. But this collection, it's quite varied because there's the traditional ones and then they've got some more modern ones as well. Because even now, these nativity scenes are really popular amongst the Portuguese. You go to any Christmas market and you'll find mini nativity scenes to buy, and also little ones that are created in the villages. I think in Lisbon, there's always a big exhibition of these things. And actually, the village where we're going to be spending a couple of days at the end of this itinerary, Monsaraz, that actually becomes like a big living presepio nativity scene in the run-up to Christmas. They have all the figures and donkeys and straw and mangers and whatnot in the village. Yeah. But it's a bit of light relief after the grimness of the Bone Chapel.
Mm-hmm. Rakuten opens up a world of rewards. You can earn cash back on fashion, beauty, electronics, pet supplies, kid stuff, groceries. But what I'm here to tell you is with Rakuten, you can get cash back on travel too. Join and save on your next trip. You'll get cash back on the flight, the hotel, and the car rental. Book on your favorite travel sites like Expedia, Booking.com, Viator, VRBO, Hotels.com, IHG, and more. Save on cruises, vacation packages, and experiences as well. And don't worry, cashback can be earned on top of your credit card points with many loyalty programs, because we know you're saving every way you can. So go ahead, take a trip, find the perfect hotel, book an artesian cheese experience inside a cave in Spain. Wherever you want to go with Rakuten. Join today for free. Go to Rakuten.com or get the app. That's RAKUTEN. And thanks to Rakuten for sponsoring this episode of Amateur Traveler. I don't know about you, but I like keeping my money where I can see it. Unfortunately, traditional big wireless carriers also seem to like keeping my money too. Before Mint Mobile asked about being a sponsor in the show, I was already looking at Mint Mobile because what they offer, the same towers, the same service for less money, was something that appealed to me. After years of overpaying for wireless, I finally got fed up with crazy high wireless bills, bogus fees, and free perks that actually cost more in the long run. Stop overpaying for wireless just because that's how it's always been. Mint exists purely to fix that. Mint Mobile is here to rescue you with premium wireless plans starting at $15 a month. If you like your money, Mint Mobile is for you. Shop plans at mintmobile.com/traveler. That's mintmobile.com/traveler. Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month 5 GB plan required, equivalent to $15 a month. New customer offer for first 3 months only. Then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See Mint Mobile for details. And thanks to Mint Mobile for sponsoring this episode of Amateur Traveler.
And then after that, to get a breath of fresh air, you can go to the Jardin Público, so the public park. That actually was the grounds for the convent of St. Francis, which then there was a royal palace built onto that called Don Manuel Palace. Only a little bit of that actually remains these days. But the park has got ruins, there's peacocks roaming around. It's a popular place for local people to just hang out and take the kids and things. So it's a nice place to just sit, people watch, and just have a little break from sightseeing.
And when you say it has ruins, from what I'm seeing, it has fake ruins.
I think some of them are real.
I'm reading an article that says that these were built as ruins.
I couldn't swear to whether they're real or not. I know I've seen ruins in the park, and I know that the palace, which has been restored recently, and so now you can see little art exhibitions, and they host cultural events there. And so the ruins are in a similar style to the palace. So I actually thought that they were part of the original building, but maybe I'm wrong.
Apparently there's a part of it that's from the medieval palace, the tower and a piece of the wall, and then they built ruins to attach to that because it was the age of romanticism. And people just thought like ruins were cool.
Yeah, there's a place in Coimbra which is the grounds of a palace, and they've built little fake Gothic windows and stuff in the grounds of that palace.
I like the idea because we could have fake ruins here where I live. We don't have any real ruins.
Yeah. If you haven't got the real stuff, then just recreate. Okay. After that morning, then I would suggest have lunch in Évora. And then in the afternoon...
Anything particular you recommend for where to eat or things we should taste while we're in Évora?
Yes, definitely. Where to start with the food? There's just too many options. Okay, so food-wise, I absolutely love the Alentejo tomato soup, sopa de tomate. Okay. Again, I mentioned this is a hot, dry region. So if you make bread, it's not going to last long. So the local people have come up with many ingenious ways of using stale bread.
Okay.
And so sopa de tomate is more than just a bowl of tomato soup. It's hearty, it's rich, it's got slices of bread in it, it's got egg poached in it. It's often served with a dish of sliced, cooked, cured meats, like chorizo, and other kind of meaty bits, and served with more bread. And in the soup, there's also peppers and onions as well. It actually does as a full meal. It's not a starter. Okay. And I love it. Absolutely gorgeous.
And unlike Spain, where they have the cold tomato soup with bread in it, this is a hot soup.
This is a hot soup, although they do, because of, again, the heat, it is also possible to get a cold soup. I'm not sure if they call it gazpacho in the Alentejo. I've never been particularly keen on cold soup, so it's not something I go for. But yeah, another way of using the bread is to make what they call migas, and it looks like mashed potato. And so it's very thick and stodgy, but it's a way of getting your carbs, and you needed that if you were working in the fields or whatever. I find the migas to be, like I say, a bit dense, but the version that I like has asparagus mixed into it. So that's migas de espargos. And so,
Okay.
yeah, you get little bits of greenery in there as well. So that lightens it up a bit and makes it feel a bit more healthy. Yeah. And then another one is a sorda, and that's more of a kind of bready soup, but the breadcrumbs rather than lumps of bread. So that could be flavored with prawns or fish, sometimes meat, but usually a kind of fishy assorda. It's something you should try once and then decide whether you like it or not. It's not high on my list, but it's a definite sort of local thing that you need to try for yourself. Black pork, porco preto, that is a speciality from this region. The Alentejo is covered in cork oak trees. It's the largest
Okay.
producer of cork in the country. And the acorns are perfect food for black pigs, Iberian black pigs.
Okay.
So again, that's a local regional speciality, and there's even a particular local type of black pig, the Alentejo black pig. So definitely, if you eat meat, then you should try that. And the olive oil, again, that's another
Hmm.
Alentejo speciality. Lots of olive plantations, lots of really high quality olive oil, and yeah, just it's drizzled on everything. It's incorporated into pretty much every
Okay.
dish. But definitely, if you get to just have a dish of it and eat it just with bread, just to savor the olive oil, it's fantastic.
Excellent.
Um, and then for dessert, so there's a baked egg dessert called sericaya, and it's a bit like a moist sponge tart. It's very sweet, but it's also quite light and tasty as well. It's usually served with plums from Elvers, which is another small town
Okay.
nearby. Now, the plums have been preserved. They are super sweet, break your teeth sweet. But if you like sweet things, then it's definitely one to try. It's a local delicacy. So those are some of the things you could try. In terms of restaurants, there's an amazing place called Una Típica Quarta-feira, which means a typical Wednesday tavern. Quite how they've come up with that, I don't know the story of the name, but it's three generations of the same family running it. And every day they just go to the market, see what there is, then they decide the menu. You don't get a choice. You just go and you have what you're given. And it's a wonderful experience. Obviously, if you've got allergies or something, then you need to check to see if it's safe for you to eat. There's so much food that even if you can't eat one of the courses, then there's plenty. You're not going to go hungry, and the experience is worth it, even if you can't have everything.
Okay.
And then another restaurant that I really like is Adega do Alentejano. And that is one of these rustic traditional restaurants with the red and white checked tablecloths. The menu is on chalkboards on the wall. They still draw the house wine from large wooden barrels. And that is where I would go to get this sopa, the tomato
Okay.
soup. Yeah. So those are great things to eat and places to eat in Évora.
Cool. Excellent. You were heading off somewhere else, and I interrupted you when you stopped for lunch.
That's fine. Okay, so where was I going to go? Did I take you to the winery? I don't
Nope.
think I did. No. So in the afternoon, I would go to one or two wineries near Évora. So it depends really on whether you want to drive or take a taxi. There's one called Cartucha, and that's a couple of kilometres outside the old town. And it's run by the foundation of the Eugenio de Almeida family. And that family was instrumental in shaping Évora culturally and agriculturally, lots of philanthropic activities. And it's one of the region's most respected wineries. So that's interesting to visit, just both for the story and for the wines. Or
Okay.
if you want to go to a medieval building and have a more, well, basically fitter preta, is about 15 minutes drive, and the building that the winery is set inside is medieval. It's really lovely, but they take a very contemporary approach to the winemaking there. So it's a bit of a contrast between the old and the new. Well, you could go to both.
It is a 1-week itinerary. You can go to more than one winery.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So the next day, and obviously you can mix these days up. You don't have to do it in this particular order. But one thing that you do need to know, I've mentioned how hot this area can be. So if you're traveling in the summer, so anytime between June and September-ish, then you really do need to manage the heat and plan any outdoor activities for the morning and try to do indoor air-conditioned stuff, or at least cool spaces in the afternoon. So for that reason, I suggest doing a megalithic monuments tour in the morning. And so what you go and see is the almendres. It's a double circle of standing stones. It's actually 7,000 years old, 2,000 years older than Stonehenge. And it's really interesting. So I went on a tour so that I was not just looking at a bunch of old rocks. Because without the context, without the history, you wouldn't even see that there's indentations. You can see the carvings that they made in the rocks, but you wouldn't see it without help. And understanding how people use the position of the sun and the moon in conjunction with these stones. And there's a big menhir nearby, which helped them to organize their lives and their crops. So that. And
sorry, I don't know the word you used there. A big what nearby?
Oh, menhir, it's a massive standing stone. So the shadow of that, or align that with the sun or the moon.
Got it.
It's amazing when you think, I don't know how they managed it all those years ago without technology, but it's very clever.
You mentioned managing the weather. When do you recommend we come to this region?
Yeah, so I think the best time of year to come is spring and autumn. It's a very different experience. In the springtime, the countryside is just a patchwork of colourful fields. The spring flowers are just amazing. You'll get purple fields, white fields, red fields, yellow fields with a lone cork oak. So they're great for photography, and it's just really pretty. And the weather is amenable. It's nice to be outside. In the autumn, the landscape will be dry and golden, or the grass will have dried up, but you've still got
because this area isn't going to get rain in the summertime.
It's not, no.
Yeah.
So the cork oaks will still be there, so there is still greenery, and from the olive trees as well. So it's not completely barren. And then there's also granite boulders as well, so they add to the appeal of the countryside. It just looks very different, but it's still attractive, even though it's quite different to the green spring. And in the summer, I've been there in July and managed it. That was fine. So it's just planning your day accordingly. You can go in the summer, but you just can't do full-on outdoor activities throughout the day without stopping. It's just not going to work. It's not safe, to be honest.
I'm assuming you're talking about temperatures that are going to get up into the 40s Celsius or the hundreds Fahrenheit.
Yeah, it's not uncommon to go above 40 degrees.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so back to the tour, because the tour that we did, it was with an archaeologist, and so he was super passionate about the lives, and he's done lots and lots of research into the lives of these people. And he also took us to the Zambujeira Dolmen, which is one of the biggest prehistoric tombs in Europe. And again, having a guide to explain it means you're not just looking at a bunch of rocks. You've got huge stone slabs arranged into a burial chamber. This one was built about 5,000 years ago. And the spoils from that chamber are actually in the Évora Museum, which is where I suggest you go in the afternoon, because you can see engraved slate plates, ceramic dishes, beads and other treasures that they would put alongside the dead in these Neolithic monuments. Having that combination of seeing the site out where it was and what was inside it, I think really adds to the experience, and it makes it feel more human than just random stones. And again, I don't know how they managed to do it, because these are massive slabs and they've placed them on top of, they've got them standing upright and then a flat one on the top. How do you do that without modern machinery? Okay, the museum is not just about what was inside the dolmen. Also, it progresses through the Bronze and Iron Ages to the Roman era. And in Évora, one of the sites you'll see is a Roman temple. So obviously there's lots of Roman sculptures and other artifacts. But one of the things that I really liked, and I'm not a huge fan of religious art, but it has got the altarpiece from Évora Cathedral in there. But what I was really impressed by were the paintings by Gran Vasco. And he is 15th century Grand Master painter. Yeah, his contemporaries, I don't know, would be Michelangelo or something. But his style, he uses a lot of gold, maybe a bit earlier actually than that, thinking about it. Very heavily religious, lots of gold halo effects, but it's incredibly detailed and really well done. So yeah, that was impressive. And then if you do like art, there's a little hidden gem called Casas Pintadas, which means painted houses. And you have to go through the modern contemporary art gallery to get to it. And then there's a little garden and a tiny building with 15th century frescoes of mythical creatures and other animals. And they represent moral characteristics, so the virtues and vices and other little stories. And some of them are really quite funny. And I particularly like that.
Excellent. And that's part of the City Museum?
No, so it's separate from the City Museum, different building, but it's not far at all. It's just diagonally opposite.
Okay.
Another thing that the Alentejo is known for is marble. And there are a couple of towns that are built up around the marble industry. There's the Marble Triangle, which is Vila Viçosa, Estremoz and Borba. And there's so much marble there that they've used it in the streets, as the cobbles, for the buildings, everything.
Now, this isn't like the Bermuda Triangle. This is where the marble disappears.
This is where the marble bubbles up and it's everywhere. And literally, you're driving along, especially near the marble mines, and there's just heaps of the stuff. And it's been used as flagstones in people's gardens, decorating the walls of people's houses. It's just everywhere. But in the Middle Ages, Vila Viçosa became the seat of the House of Bragança, which is Portugal's most important noble family and part of its royal dynasty. And in Vila Viçosa, there's a ducal palace that reflects that wealth. To be honest, the actual palace tour, I wouldn't bother with it myself. It's all in Portuguese and you can't take photos. So if you don't understand Portuguese, it's a bit lost on you, really. But as I say, the marble industry was the real engine for the town. And so I've been really curious about marble mines, because I love marble. When I see marble sculptures, I always want to touch them. There's just something about marble that seeing the kind of like the grain of it, the different shapes, colors, love it. So I was quite curious when I saw that you could do a tour of a marble mine, a quarry. And I managed to persuade a friend of mine to do one with me, do a tour. And we booked it through Rota de Marmor, which is Portuguese for marble. The woman that took us, she was from Vila Viçosa, absolutely passionate about the town and the marble, knows her stuff. And so she gave us a little intro to the different types of marble that you can find in that area and the mining industry, the history, etc. But then she took us to a quarry, so we put the hard hats on and see it looking down into the depths. And you're so high that the people look like ants down in the bottom, these impossible staircases going down into the pits. It's not necessarily something that you imagine doing when you go on holiday, but it was really interesting, I felt. And then we actually went to a marble factory. So you see how they take it from a rough hunk of stone to polished sheets of it and all the different machines that it goes through. So that was really lovely. And then one of the other marble towns I mentioned is Estremoz. Now, I'd heard of it as a marble town, and I'd been a few times, like stopping over on my way somewhere else, and not really understood what the appeal was until a couple of years ago. I went with this same friend, and we stayed in the Posada, which is the formal castle. So we stayed in Estremoz Castle and spent a couple of days there. And so it's actually really beautiful when you get to know it. And the keep area has amazing views over the surrounding countryside.
Mom, can you tell me a story?
Sure. Once upon a time, a mom needed a new car.
Was she brave?
She was tired, mostly. But she went to Carvana.com and found a great car at a great price. No secret treasure map required.
Did she have to fight a dragon?
Nope. She bought it 100% online. From her bed, actually.
Was it scary?
Honey, it was as unscary as car buying could be.
Did the car have a sunroof?
It did, actually.
Okay, good story.
Car buying you'll want to tell stories about. Buy your car today on
Carvana.
Delivery fees may apply.
Good sleep is everything. That's why Ollie's Science Back Support is made with a blend of melatonin and L-theanine for both kiddos and grown-ups. So when your mind won't switch off, you've got something that can help. Your racing thoughts and restless nights won't stand a chance. Find Ollie Sleep Solutions for the whole family at ollie.com. That's OLLY.com.
But also in that upper castle area, there's a gallery called Galleria La Pedra, and that has amazing marble sculptures. So if you've done the marble tour and seen from the ground through to the industrial slabs, then it's really nice to go to the gallery and see the actual exquisite sculptures and the way it's been worked. But the other thing that makes Estremoz worth visiting is the clay figurines, which are the bonecos de Estremoz. They're also recognised by UNESCO as intangible world cultural heritage. And they're little dolls made of clay. They used to be sold at fairs and markets. And obviously now that they've got the UNESCO status, they're much prized. And once they got the recognition, you couldn't buy one for love nor money. They're just sold out like that. But now there are still local artisans producing them. And we went to one Atelier Afonso Ginger, that's with a G, Ginja. And he's just on the street that runs down from the castle. And you can see him in action, either shaping or painting the dolls, lots of different examples of these figures. So you've typically got people selling things at the market or on fair days, high days and holidays, different activities. So it's really interesting insight into the local culture and traditions through this craft.
Interesting.
Yeah. And on that theme, there's a wonderful museum, little folk museum, again in this castle area, called the Municipal Professor Joaquim Vermelho. So I know it's a bit of a mouthful.
I just know I have to find that and figure out the Portuguese spelling, which is a puzzle for me.
Yeah. I'll send you the name so you can put it in the show notes and don't need to find out the spelling. I'll give it to you. So you've got the ceramic figurines that I've just mentioned, but in this museum, they have some examples of those, but they also have lots of other mediums. So there's one section that's got all these figurines made of cork, and another one that's got all these figurines and little mock-ups of farmyards and a dairy or whatever made from wood, and some carved wooden spoons, and just lots of different, but really well done, really intricate folk art. So if you're interested in that and the local culture and history, then that's a really good place to go.
Okay.
Yeah. And then down in the lower part of the town, and I would actually drive. So I'd start in the top part of the town and then drive down, unless you wanted to have lunch first and do it the other way around. But because there's a nice cafe near a fountain called Sabores dos Maltesers, and that's good for local dishes and light food. But the other place that's worth visiting in Estremoz is the Tile Museum. I think it's called the Berardo Tile Museum, but I'll have to double check. Oh yeah, El Berardo Estremoz. And Berardo was an amazing collector, very passionate about minerals, tiles, Art Nouveau. I don't know. He's collected all sorts of artworks, but his collection of tiles, a vast part of the collection is held in this museum now. So we've seen tiles in the church, but these are all the different kind of patterns and varieties of tiles in one place. And I love it. Absolutely love these places.
And mostly hand painted, it looks like.
Absolutely. Yeah. So you could easily spend an hour there, and you get a wine tasting at the end of it.
There you go.
Yeah. So even more reason to go. Okay, so that's us pretty much done in Évora.
Okay.
So the next day, we're moving base and we're going to Monsaraz, which, as I mentioned, is this tiny medieval village. It was originally built by the Moors, and then it became a fortress village defending Portugal from Spain. So it's right on the Spanish border. And although it lost its military importance and also being on a hill, it wasn't particularly practical for a growing village. So people moved from there to a place called Reguengos de Monsaraz, which is easier to live and cultivate. Go on, you were going to say something?
No, I thought that's the one we were talking about. That was the one that I found when I was looking for Monsaraz.
Yeah, so it's a common, not mistake, but confusion, because there's two names. So Monsaraz itself is smaller and closer to the Alentejo Reservoir.
Got it. Yep.
Okay. So there's almost no modern buildings. You shouldn't really try and drive inside. So you've still got the old gateway in the walls to the village. So you park outside and walk in, and it really is like stepping back in time. But what I like about it is that it's still very well kept. The cottages, you've got bougainvillea, whitewashed walls. It's really quaint and beautiful. And because of its location, as I say, the castle overlooks the Alentejo Reservoir, which is a massive body of water. You only have to go a little way out of the village and you've just got no street lights, no nothing. And there is actually an observatory near the lake where you can do guided observation of the night skies, or you can just go and find a quiet spot somewhere and do your own stargazing. And so the reason I've chosen to have 2 nights in Monsaraz is because in case you have a cloudy night, to give you the opportunity to have 2 nights of stargazing. But there are other things to do in Monsaraz and around. So one of those is to stop at San Pedro de Corval, which is on the way to Monsaraz. And this is one of the largest pottery centres in Iberia. And so it's a tiny village, and pretty much, I think there's about 18 or maybe 20, 21, I can't remember off the top of my head, different family pottery workshops, most of which are on one street, although a couple of them are just slightly off that. And they're all still functioning. You can go, you can see them doing their work, choose, and they'll ship to wherever, because obviously ceramics are quite heavy, so you can't really stuff too many in your suitcase. But what I really recommend doing is go to Casa do Barro first. So that's like a little museum, and you can see some of the kilns and some of the process of making pottery. But the good thing about that is they have a display shelf with examples of each of the different potteries on the shelves, so that you can choose which styles appeal to you. and
Okay.
only go to the ones you actually like rather than traipse around all the different ones just in case you might find one. So you can hone in on the ones that you prefer.
Okay.
I've actually still got some pieces that we use every day that I absolutely love. Really a nice bright blue with bright flowers on them. I can't remember the name of the actual pottery in question, but yeah, you'll just find the ones that you like. And then before you actually go to Monsaraz, after this village, I would stop at a restaurant that's called Same Thing, which means without end. And the building is an old olive press. So you've still got the machinery in there, these massive olive press things.
Okay.
So the atmosphere is authentic and unusual, unique. And the first time I went there, they offered me this soup. And I was like, he said the translation was, he said, it's weed soup. And I'm like, weeds? I'm not eating weeds. In Portuguese, it's beldroegas. And I don't remember what that is in English, but it's actually a common weed. It grows in my garden and it's really good for the garden. It retains the water. Purslane, Purslane.
I don't know that. Okay.
Okay, so it may not be typical in your area, and obviously I live in Portugal now, so I know it grows in my garden, but how widespread it is in other countries, I don't know. But it's very low growing, red stems and small green leaves, but it actually tastes really nice. So I had this soup with these weeds and some cheese in it as well. So that's one of my memorable meals. I really enjoyed that. And there is actually a little art gallery at this restaurant as well. You get a bit of everything while you're there. So I've talked about stargazing at night. So after you've been to the restaurant, then you go to Monsaraz, have a wander around the village. There's kind of lots of little places to visit while you're there. The following day, I would go on a boat trip or even a kayak trip on the Alentejo Reservoir.
Okay.
You can do a sailing trip or whatever. There's different kinds of vessels that you can use. There's also a really nice river beach. So if you just wanted to just sit or go for a swim, that's also possible.
Okay.
And then if you want more wine, then you could go do a winery visit at Évora, which is one of the iconic wineries in this region. They do the Vinho d'Italia, so that's the Roman style terracotta pots. Yeah, so the restaurant is fine dining overlooking the lake, very nice. Or you can just do wine tasting and olive oil tasting while you're there if you don't want to have the full meal. If you're not bothered about another winery, then what you could do instead is take a day trip to Évora, which is another UNESCO place. It has a massive fortress and an aqueduct. I think it's 16th century, but it's unusual because it's got 3 layers. So it's not just one row of arches, it's a triple layer. Okay, and then your final day is making your way back towards Lisbon. And I would make a stop in a town or city called Setúbal, which is just south of Lisbon. And this is a non-touristy working town. It's famous for the dolphins that live in the estuary. It's got a colourful, quite creative old town centre. And in the park, there's these massive ceramic sculptures that also are representations of local traditions and important figures, like the local poet and a singer called Louisa Toddy. And then one of the things I loved there was the Michel Giacometti Museum of Work, and it's inside a former sardine canning factory. The lower floor, you've got exhibitions that explain the whole process of canning, from unloading the fish to canning it. And then the upper floor, you've got artifacts relating to the world of work. Michel Giacometti, he was a French ethnologist from Corsica, and he moved to Portugal in 1959 and then spent 30 years travelling around Portugal, studying and recording popular oral traditions that were being lost or forgotten. For ethnologists, there's a vast body of work there to be explored. And then also in Setúbal, so you could probably have lunch there. There's a square called Ado dos Santos, and there's lots of different restaurants all around the side of it, and they all have grills outside. So they have the catch of the day. And so it doesn't really matter which restaurant you go to, you're going to get fresh grilled seafood, whichever way you look at it. So it's a nice place. It's where the locals go for lunch as well.
Okay.
Okay. And once you're done in Setúbal, then I would go north, continue north to Lisbon, but drive through the Arrábida Natural Park and make a stop in Vila Nogueira de Azeitão, more commonly known as Azeitão. And that's a small village where you can try Azeitão cheese, which is to die for. It's a round cheese. You cut the top off and then you need a spoon to scoop it out because it's so runny. This area, Setúbal, it's a wine region. And not only do they produce really good reds, etc., they also have Moscatel wine, which is fortified.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And it's nicer than port in that it's a bit more refreshing. It's not quite as heavy or quite as strong or sweet as port wine. It's worth trying. And they also do amazing cakes and biscuits. And yes, I went into this bakery and it's called O Cego, which means the blind man. And basically, I don't know why it's called the blind man, but anyway, it's been running since 1901. And they invented these little S-shaped biscuits. I wanted to try the cake, but the guy persuaded me to have one of these S biscuits and to have it with Moscatel wine. Now, I'm used to the idea of dipping your biscuits in tea or coffee, but I've never even thought about dipping it in wine. And he told me you should do that, especially when the biscuits are still warm, because they're semi-soft.
And when you say biscuits here, we're doing what I would call a cookie.
Cookie.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, he just happened to have a fresh batch of S cookies right straight from the ovens. So I was like, okay, I have to try this. And because it just soaks up the Moscatel wine, and it was a perfect combination. And you can almost recreate it by putting one of those biscuits in the microwave before dipping it into your Moscatel wine. So you can take it home with you and try it at home. You don't need a fresh batch from the bakery. Yeah, after that, then you are back in Lisbon.
Excellent. Yeah, your last stop there, just so people know, we're only, maybe 10 miles from Lisbon. So that's also a decent day trip from Lisbon if you're doing a Lisbon itinerary.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Excellent. We're already over an hour here, so we'll start to wrap this up. But anything else people need to know before they book their ticket to do this part of Portugal?
I would say that you need to know, I've mentioned about the heat, etc. Definitely bring comfortable shoes. Cobbled streets are not comfortable if you've got thin soles, so definitely do that. Bring layers, because even if it's hot, then if you're in a heavily air-conditioned building, you might get chilly. The layers is a standard when you come to Portugal. Also, if you're in a restaurant, they often bring little dishes of food out to you, and you're like, oh, this is nice, but they're not free. You have to either, if you don't want them, send them back untouched. If you're not sure, then you can ask how much they are first, and then decide whether or not you want to pay. But just be wary, because if you do tuck into them, then you could be in for a nasty surprise with your bill.
I've fallen for that in multiple restaurants in Europe.
Yeah. And that's pretty much it, because its distances are short, the roads are pretty good. So driving in that area is not too bad. But I would download any driving maps in advance, because sometimes the GPS can get a bit patchy in rural areas.
Got it. Excellent. As we go to wrap this up, you're standing in the prettiest part of the whole Alentejo region. Alentejo region. I can't say it. Where are you standing and what are you looking at?
Okay, so from the castle walls in Monsaraz, the dark sky village, and you're looking out over a sweep of countryside and water. So you've got white villages olive groves, cork trees in the foreground, the blue of the lake stretching into the horizon. And it looks more like a sea than a reservoir because you can't see the edges. And yeah, it's just absolutely beautiful.
I feel like you were ready for that question. One thing that makes you laugh and say only in this region of Portugal.
Oh, no, I'm not ready for that question. Size of the meals, honestly, yeah, you're not going to lose weight in the Alentejo, that is for sure. Portions are huge, so you might want to consider sharing.
Good to know. And if you had to summarize the region in just 3 words, what 3 words would you use?
Authentic.
Okay.
Spacious. And timeless.
Excellent. Our guest again has been Julie Fox from juliedawnfox.com, where you can both read her blog and also get more information about planning your trip to Portugal. Julie, is there one particular blog post we should send people to that will give more information about what we've been talking about?
Yeah, I have a blog post about things to do in Évora. So I think, and there's also have one about things to do in Monsaraz. So I'll send you links to both of those so that people can have a dig around and find out more.
Excellent. We'll include those in the show notes so people can more easily find them. Julie, thanks so much for coming on Amateur Traveler and sharing with us your obvious love for Portugal and for this particular region of Alentejo.
Well, thank you very much. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Refreshing wild cherry cola meets smooth cream. The treat you deserve. Pepsi Wild Cherry and Cream. Treat yourself.
Right now at the Home Depot, shop Spring Black Friday savings and get up to 40% off, plus up to $500 off select appliances from top brands like Samsung. Get a fridge with 0 clearance hinges, so the doors open fully even in tighter spaces in your kitchen. And laundry that saves you time, like an all-in-one washer dryer that can run a full load in just 68 minutes. Shop Spring Black Friday savings, plus get free delivery on appliance purchases of $998 or more at the Home Depot. Offer valid April 9th through April 29th, U.S. only. See store online for details.
Thanks to Julie, and a special thanks to the patrons of the show who help support Amateur Traveler. If you're interested in learning more about becoming a patron of the show, go to patreon.com/amateurtraveler. I think by the time this comes out that the voting for next year's Amateur Traveler trip will be done. But if you want to know the outcome, go to amateurtraveler.com/trips to learn more. With that, we're going to end this episode of Amateur Traveler. If you have any questions, send an email to chris2x@gmail.com, or better yet, leave a comment on this episode at amateurtraveler.com. And as always, thanks so much for listening.